Full-time workers homeless in their cars in Jeff Bezos' parking lot.
Currently am, yeah.
You could double the taxes I pay, and it's not going to help that teacher in Queens.
Did not pay a penny in federal income taxes. Covering what the corporate media covers up. Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. Breaking news. Jeff Bezos, the world's fourth richest man, who has his Amazon workers living homeless outside the warehouse and has created homeless utopias in cities like Seattle, says we should get rid of corporate welfare that he's lavishly enjoying, and says that he pays billions of taxes, even though he pays nothing in taxes, and says that even if you raised his taxes excessively, it would not help the lowly teacher in Queens. And what did the TV news anchor who interviewed him challenge him with? Absolutely nothing. Let's start with Bezos saying, yeah, I mean, increasing my taxes, how's that going to help the struggling teacher in Queens? Take a listen.
You and others are able to pay a lower tax rate, even though you're paying an enormous sum in taxes, a lower tax rate than maybe I am,
these people sometimes say that, I don't pay taxes. It's not true. I pay billions of dollars in taxes. And it's a perfect, again, if people want me to pay more billions, right, then let's have that debate. But don't pretend, that's going to solve the problem. You could double the taxes I pay, and it's not going to help that teacher in Queens. I promise you. So you can't connect those two things, not logically.
Of course, you could double my taxes. Not going to help the teacher in Queens. Before we get to that lie, and also the bigger lie that he pays billions in taxes, I want to show you, if you're new here, we do something radical. It's called living, breathing, on the ground journalism. I covered the Amazon workers in Staten Island historic union campaign, which they won. And Amazon, years later, has still refused to negotiate a union contract illegally, but they're allowed to do it because this is America and laws don't apply to companies like Amazon and oligarchs like Jeff Bezos. But I interviewed workers who are working full time for Amazon and are homeless, sleeping in the parking lot. Take a listen to one worker who has worked there for years and was literally sleeping in the parking lot. Not to get too personal, you don't have to talk about it, but you said you're one of them. So you're currently homeless working at Amazon?
Currently am, yeah. I have been homeless for the past, 2.5, almost 3 years that I've been here now. And I haven't been able to afford a place. None of my family's out here. I noticed a lot of people on the East Coast, a lot of them have basements in their homes, so there isn't really much of a roommate situation unless you're going to a university out here or you're over 55 and you can afford senior discount rents at some type of senior apartment. Otherwise, a lot of people get married straight out of the home or they move into their folks' basement. A lot of the families are really tight here on the East Coast, so it's been really, really tough. I go on Craigslist every single day. I've already filed for renter's assistance a few months back in Jersey and in New York, still on a waiting list for low-income housing. And the fact that I can make $20 an hour and still be considered for low-income housing it's mind-boggling because the rest of the country is thinking, well, she's making more than minimum wage. How come she can't afford a place to live? Well, it's because there's no affordable rent out here. And we don't make enough, and we don't get promoted. I mean, I've been with the company since 2017. I have an AA degree. I've trained literally hundreds of people since I've been in Jersey and New York, and I've applied over a dozen times for positions at the next level, Tier 3. I can't even get an interview. That's ridiculous.
And that was one of my several reporting trips to that warehouse, which behind me, workers were sleeping in their cars in the parking lot because Amazon was not paying them enough to live while this asshole is sailing around the world in his yacht with his wife, who he had a lavish wedding in Italy that TV news was all over. Full-time workers homeless in their cars in Jeff Bezos' parking lot. And he wants to talk about, more taxes for me wouldn't help a lowly teacher in Queens. Well, about that. And by the way, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani, he begged to differ. He tweeted in response to Jeff Bezos saying, tax me more, wouldn't make a difference. He said, I have a I know a few teachers in Queens who would beg to differ. So that was the mayor. And let's get to that whole I pay billions of dollars in taxes. Really? Billions of dollars in taxes. Well, ProPublica a couple of years ago did a piece on oligarchs like Jeff Bezos and how little they pay in taxes. Jeff Bezos in 2007, then a multi-billionaire and the world's richest man at the time, did not pay a penny in federal income taxes. He achieved that feat again in 2011. Oh, well, Jordan, you could say it's 2026 now. Maybe he's paying billions now. He ain't paying billions. He's paying very little. And Amazon's paying very little. Did the TV news anchor that did the interview with him challenge him on that bullshit? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. These are the people purchasing our Congress. These are the people purchasing the president. Not just Trump, by the way. Amazon purchased the Democrats when they were in office, and they purchased local politicians. Go ask activists in Seattle about the number Amazon and Jeff Bezos has done on Seattle, which I also reported on the ground a few years ago. And I interviewed a homeless individual who literally was part of a growing sea of homelessness in Seattle because Amazon was rising rent so fast and not paying anything in taxes at the time. Very little in taxes at the time in Seattle. So because of Amazon's explosion in Seattle and the high salaried employees that came in, it was pushing working people out and creating a homeless utopia. Take a listen to this individual I interviewed.
It just seems to me like you drive around these communities and it's all like fancy new housing, yet right next to that fancy new housing and nice neighborhoods is like just endless amounts of basically tent cities where people are homeless. Do you think that's in part because of business has come here and Amazon has come here and all that and driven up prices to the point where people can't live?
I mean, they got 12 freaking Google buildings down on the waterfront, you know what I mean? You see a couple of tents pitched out there even, you know?
I also want to get to Mr. Bezos saying, why is the rent so high?
A nurse in Queens who makes $75,000 a year pays more than $12,000 a year in taxes. Does that really make sense? So people talk about, making the tax system more progressive. How about we start by having the nurse in Queens not pay taxes? Why is a nurse in Queens who makes $75,000 a year paying more than $1,000 a month in taxes? That's $1,000 a month that could help with rent or groceries or anything. And so, and by the way, do you know what that all adds up to? The bottom half of income earners in this country pay only 3% of the taxes. So, it's only 3%. We can find 3%. So we don't have, it's a small amount of money for the government, that. And really, and the more I thought about it, to me, it's kind of absurd that we're doing this. We shouldn't be asking this nurse in Queens to send money to Washington. They should be sending her an apology. It really makes no sense.
What's really causing high rent is government intervention. He's actually right, but he's lying about the type of government intervention that's causing high rent. I give you, and I've covered this all around the country, the real estate developers are buying off the politicians. Just in New York City, headline one, real estate industry and executives pour millions into the mayoral race. This was Zohran Mamdani's race. And typically, they get what they want because they buy off the politicians. They haven't bought off Zohran, which I don't think they will be able to because he's actually a progressive. But pretty much every other politician, real estate in New York City, other cities, hell, I've covered cities where the real estate developers are literally city councilmen. They're real estate developers who are also elected politicians. I wonder what policy preferences they have. You wonder why the whole goddamn country is getting more and more gentrified. That was in New York City, but it's in other places too. I mean, right here, nearly half of all political donations in Marion County are from developers, real estate investors. Among more than 500 political donations, totaling around 250,000 that have been made to Marion County candidates this year, real estate investors, developers, and construction companies represent both the largest number of individual donations and the largest total of any industries. So from New York City to local counties, the real estate developers are purchasing our government, and as a result can do whatever the hell they want, including hiking up rent. But I'm with you, Jeff. Let's get rid of the 3% tax, that $1,000 a month that the teacher making $75,000 has to pay. Totally with you. Let's subtract that, give that money back to the working class, especially the teachers. And how are we going to pay for that? How are we going to make up for that $12,000 a year? You pay the difference. Actually, you pay more than the difference because you made your money by buying off the politicians, by favorable policies, by deregulation, and you could afford it. So he's got one half of the equation right, but he's missing the other. Totally agree. We should cut taxes for the lowest among us and the middle class because that money goes right back into the economy, and significantly hike taxes on him rather than allow it to sit in his stock portfolios or go back in stock buybacks. Did the CNBC interviewer challenge him on that? Ask him, hey, should you pay the difference? Of course not. Of course not. But perhaps the biggest intellectual crime here was Jeff Bezos. Yes, Jeff Bezos having the audacity, the unmitigated gall to talk about we have too much corporate welfare in this country. Too much corporate welfare from the king of all corporate welfare. Take a listen to Mr. Bezos waxing poetic that we have too much corporate welfare.
What I would say is that we have way too much corporate welfare, way too much corporate subsidies. We have, there's way too much influence in politics from business, in some cases, wealthy people who really focus on that, unions. There's a bunch of people interfering in the political process. And if we can make that better, we should do that too. That would be another root cause. We go back and figure out what is happening there. But yeah.
We have way too much corporate welfare. Who exactly is the recipient of that corporate welfare? Can you guess? I mean, literally, this is the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard. Bezos. Amazon has received $15 billion in government subsidies since the year 2000 and paid 1.4%. 1.4% in federal taxes last year. We have way too much corporate welfare, he says. And that's not even counting, by the way, the subsidies he gets for his lavish SpaceX and his other bullshit vanity projects. This is who owns the government. This is who owns the media. And he gets little pillow party interviews here that they don't challenge him and call out his absurd lies. Meanwhile, his workers are sleeping in the parking lot and he's created homeless utopias in cities like Seattle. This is why we exist. And those on the ground clips were us on the ground thanks to you funding it. We're not funded by Amazon or United Healthcare or the living Koch brother. Our funding comes from you, the people. So please, please support us. Statuscoup.com/join. Support us for as low as $5 a month. That's 16 cents a day. Let's expose these fucking liars.